Well, today it is farewell to the Alps for another year, but it's not farewell to the memories yet, because we are in for a very special day today as the riders head to Alpe d'Huez, and it is a glorious day. Chilly air at 62 Fahrenheit, 7 miles an hour the wind, mostly sunny, and Alpe d'Huez there's a massive crowd awaiting the arrival of the Tour de France, and we are going to show you live on Versus every turn of the wheels today. As always, these beautiful pictures available in high definition. Well, there we are, live pictures. It's unusual, but they're not starting until 2:30 local time today here in France. It's a short stage, Paul. It's only 109 kilometers. They're lining up here in the town of Modane, very small town which separates the Savoie from Italy. It's going to be very quick.
It's going to be very scary, especially if you're a sprinter as well. We'll see lots of action from the climbers today, and today we will finally, possibly, I would say, get an idea who is going to win this Tour de France overall. But I, being a non-climber myself in the old days, actually had a quick look at the elimination times. The elimination times today could be as low as 21 minutes after the winner's time.
Which is very low, and the riders will play safe like they did yesterday, of course, because Mark Cavendish on the front here in his green jersey lost 20 points of his lead because he finished outside of the elimination time. But because of another rule, where there were too many riders in the group, in fact 50% of the field was alongside Mark, they obviously couldn't kick out 50% of the field, so because of that he wasn't eliminated from the race, but he did lose 20 points off his green jersey. There he is, Thomas Voclet, 10 days in yellow, and his scant lead now just 15 seconds.
See a couple of riders at the back there with the yellow numbers. 56 is David Miller, and they're wearing the yellow numbers because Garmin Cervelo are the leaders of the team classification. In fact, they extended their lead in that competition yesterday to 10.5 minutes. They're on the way, and they've got a little bit of a neutralised section to begin with. Then once the white flag comes in from the race organiser's car, Christian Prudhomme, we will see, I think, a little bit of fireworks right from the gun.
And the neutralised section is just 5 minutes today for these 168 riders who survive. 30 riders only dropping out in the 3 weeks, and the vast majority of those through serious injury, breakage of bones, etc. So we're heading out of Modane and heading now towards the Alpe. We will first of all set fur for, yes, that place again, the Col de Galibier, where we finished on top yesterday. We don't go quite up to the dizzy height where the finishing line was, but we're not far short, and we'll come down the way the riders raced up.
Little chat to Thomas Voclet there from Jérôme Pinault, just having a quick chat. I think everybody in France is amazed at the courage of this man who has held on to that yellow jersey. I think we all expected him to lose it yesterday. In fact, about 3 times so far we expect him to lose that yellow jersey, and he's kept it and kept a firm grip on it. Today, theoretically, and everything has to be theoretically at the moment, the way this Tour de France is unfolding, he should lose it on the slopes of the Alpe.
Well, this is taking him back to 2004, where he held the jersey for 10 days, and now he is in his 10th day in yellow today. But will it be the end as he says goodbye to the Alps? 15 seconds. It seems highly improbable now he will keep his yellow jersey. It seems to be a 3-horse battle between Andy and Frank Schleck and Cadel Evans, who are separated by just 57 seconds.
I'll tell you one thing.
Profile, Paul.
Horrible, absolutely horrible. If you're a non-climber today, the first category climb there is the Col du Telegraphe, and then you've got that massive long climb to the outside categorized climb of the Col du Galibier from the long side, and then down into Bourg d'Oisans for the sprint point, and then finally the 13.5-kilometer ascent, 21 cornered Alpe d'Huez.
Now they've redesigned the green jersey and tried to bring it back for the pure sprinters of the race this year, altering the point structure and everything else, and for that reason I can't understand why they've chosen the sprint point at the foot of Alpe d'Huez, because the sprinters won't be there to take part in that sprint. Let's have a look at the overall standings, taking into account the 20 points removed from Mark Cavendish. Rojas finished 2 minutes ahead of him yesterday and was not in the elimination time, so he didn't lose any points, so he's only 15 points behind Mark Cavendish.
Just to make a point there, Phil, it wasn't just Mark Cavendish that lost 20 points, it was everybody else in that group with him because they finished outside of the time limit, but obviously it was more important for Cavendish, and that's going to make that a very tight race right the way to the Champs-Élysées.
And in that group were 82 riders, can you believe? And they knew they were safe. They could have pedalled home all day because the rule says you can't kick out 82 riders even though they're outside the elimination time. Cavendish on the front looking cool. He knows this is his big day today. If he gets through today without being eliminated, then he'll be okay in the time trial tomorrow, and he'll be looking to win on Sunday in Paris.
Well, one thing's for certain, the faster, and that's the way the elimination time works. In fact, the faster the stage is, the higher the percentage of the winner's time. So if they go fast today, and if they get a speed as high as 35 kilometers an hour average speed, the elimination time will be 15%, which corresponds to 27 minutes.
Well, as we leave Modane, this is the town which enjoys 300 days of sunshine a year, and thank heavens this is one of those 300 as the riders go up into the high mountains yet again. Thomas Voclet has had more than a week in that maillot jaune. He's really developed as a star of French cycling. There have even been those who believed he could win the Tour, but he's a realist, I think.
Well, I think one thing for certain, Phil, it all depends on the tactics of the guys like the Schlecks and Cadel Evans. They need to go out and race this stage very hard today, because if they ride tactically, ride and watch each other, and they ride steadily over the climbs, if Thomas Voclet is still in contact by the bottom of the Alpe d'Huez, he'll start to nurture thoughts of winning this Tour de France.
Everybody, the départ est donné. Kilometre zero, we are underway, and I suspect we're going to have a very fast start, and there to prove it, immediately out of the traps, the racing.
Well, Vacansoleil on the attack immediately. Euskaltel-Euskadi in the orange jersey, BMC, that looked like Marcus Burkhardt. He has got to get into the breakaway again to try and look after Cadel Evans a little bit later on. I would like to see the tactics of Cadel Evans and Team BMC today coming out and being aggressive and actually taking the race to the Schlecks.
We are going on one of the what will be most certainly most dramatic of the 3 weeks of racing here between the Schlecks and Cadel Evans. We are going to see tactics from the gun, and normally we don't take our pictures till down the road a ways when the breakaway has established. Today, because they're not available from French television for anybody in the world, it's not just us that misses out on that, we are now able to watch racing from the gun here, and tactics immediately being put in. Johnny Hugeland on the left of our picture, who we've seen so much in the action for 3 weeks, already on the attack. Well, it's Michael Shaw, I think, the tall man there from BMC.
Well, just looking back, there doesn't seem to be much reaction, and I can see a number of black jerseys coming forward, and that's Team Sky. They lost the lead in the Best Young Rider competition yesterday. Rigoberto Urán had a very difficult day in the mountains.
A reasonably flat start. In fact, it's almost downhill for just a few moments as we leave Modane on our profile today. So they've got good roads as well. Then they'll be getting on to the lower slopes of the Col de Telegraph, and that's 11.9 kilometers. As we go through the roundabouts here now, we are watching the whole peloton really aliven up from the gun. We feel this will be a very, very fast stage, because it is a showdown between Andy and Frank Schleck and Cadel Evans. Everybody else in this race, I respectfully will call the bit players of the Tour de France, because this is a three-man race to Alpe d'Huez.
This is Marcus Burkhardt, the rider in black and red for Team BMC Racing. Obviously been given the order by Team BMC, get into that early breakaway, because we're going to need you later on in the event, because Cadel Evans is going to try today and lay the foundations for a victory. Chris Horner
or Dave Zabriskie with us. The peloton are ripping along around the sides of the Arc River here at the moment. There are 14 riders now in that breakaway already. There's 14 men working well together, 204 here. Johnny Hugeland was one of the first to get into the move. He's anxious to get on and see if he can get more points in the King of the Mountains. He was the early leader of that. Had a spectacular crash on the road to Saint Flour when he went into that barbed wire fence. Seems to have recovered over the next 10 days, though. So as the riders speed on, we'll try and get you all of those names. Utazan is in there. Andre Greipel, the sprinter, is in there. Maxime Iglinski, who was in the mountains riding well yesterday, is there. Rui Costa, the Portuguese, who won his stage at Superbest. Gutierrez of Movistar. Caran of Liquigas. Riblon of AG2R. Fletcher of the Sky team, and there is Alberto Contador, cracked big time yesterday, lost nearly 4 minutes, and now Alberto Contador having to see if he can just pull himself back into this race today, at least to distinguish himself. Now there's Andy Schleck, second in the black, behind their teammates here, just looking around. That's Jakob Fuglsang there at the front, protecting the leader. Schleck looks pretty happy with the way the race has started. A little bit of a smile with the teammates, ex-teammates of his, but still the teammates of Alberto Contador.
Well, Phil, I have to tell you, I think I tell you this every year, but it would be remiss of me to avoid mentioning that in 218 BC, Hannibal marched down here with 90 infantry, 12,000 cavalry, and 37 elephants. And that was one of the remarkable crossings of the Alps on his way into Italy.
Yes, he made a big name for himself. Who's going to make a big name for themselves today?
Sure that they start this climb once they get into Saint-Michel-de-Maurienne in the first 15 positions.
Well, the 14 leaders have just started the climb. Our cameras are giving you a nice helicopter view here. The riders snaking their way away from the autoroute in France, heading now towards the much narrower roads, the approach of the Col de Telegraphe, and then a little bit of a downhill and straight onto the slopes of the Col du Glibier. Two climbs coming up, then a long descent down to Bourg d'Oisson, where any sprinters nearly in touch at the top might get back on. Here's the crowd, and this is going to be an excellent stretch of racing now.
Well, of the riders in the breakaway, there's a number of riders have won stages in the Tour de France before. Greipel and Costa have won stages this year. Christophe Rablon won a stage last year. Juan Antonio Fletcher won a stage over by Toulouse, and Marcus Burkhardt also a former winner. But today, it's the different things these guys are looking for. There are different tactics being involved out on the road. For Marcus Burkhardt, he's not thinking about trying to win at Alpe d'Huez. He's thinking about trying to be a platform for Cadel Evans later on in the event, much as we saw the same manoeuvre happen yesterday by Leopard Trek, putting two riders in the early breakaway.
Well, 14 riders here, but I think Andre Greipel is number 33, if you can just see him ahead of us there. He'd be one of the first boys in trouble. 10.9 kilometres is the climb to the top of the Col de Glibier. And we've still 93 kilometres to go, which is a short day of racing today. The riders have only been racing 20 minutes, and here they are now on the first mountain stage of the day.
Well, I think Andre Greipel getting into that breakaway, Phil, like many of the sprinters, thinks, well, let me have a 2 or 3 minute advantage before we start the climb of the Col du Telegraphe, and then I've got a much better chance of finding a comfortable position in the autobus. A lot of riders were concerned yesterday about that elimination time, and I would think today they will also be quite concerned.
Yeah.
Elimination time on a short stage is extremely scary. In fact, there's a special elimination percentage for a short mountain stage, and if the race is at an average of 32 kilometres an hour, just only 18, 19 miles an hour, the elimination is 12% of the winner's time.
This looks like it might be Chris Anker Sorensen, who's having a little dig away from the front. Is this a plan by Alberto Contador, his team captain, telling him to get up front and stretch his legs?
Well, Alberto Contador said very early on in the year that one of the things that he really wanted to do was win Alpe d'Huez. It is an iconic finish that all of the greats of the sport want to win on it. So maybe this is the move by Saxo Bank this afternoon to try and provide the leapfrog for Alberto Contador a little bit later on.
Well, Sorensen is a good climber, and he's a good carrot too as he starts to move off there. He may be presenting Alberto, taking the attention of the race away from Alberto. The race may be lulled into the feeling that after what we saw yesterday in the Glibier, Alberto hasn't got it, and he's over 4 minutes behind now overall, so he won't be quite the marked man. This is the action of the breakaway. Greipel's number 33 sitting near the back. 22 is Izaguirre from Euskadel.
Yeah, well, putting Contador, Phil, yes, 4 minutes behind Thomas Voclet, but in fact, behind the rest of the guys, he's not very much more than just over 3 minutes, for example, behind Frank Schleck, and only 3 minutes behind Cadel Evans. So if he's recovered and bounced back overnight on this short stage, it actually suits his climbing abilities a lot more.
Well, if he was to get to the top as winner, or at least up to 2 minutes ahead of Andy Schleck or Frank Schleck or Cadel Evans in the time trial tomorrow, then Alberto Contador could take more than a minute out of them with ease. He'd all of a sudden be winner of his 4th Tour de France. So it's all possible. It's all down to the legs today.
It's all down to the combinations and the tactics there, but I can just see the black and white jerseys there completely in control at the front end of the peloton. That, of course, is Leopard Trek. Much as they toughened the race up yesterday, they're going to try and adopt the same tactic this afternoon.
Now they're at it again.
Well, Andre Greipel going backwards there, that's not a surprise, Phil. He's a big sprinter. He just wanted to get into that breakaway to get himself a slight start when they got to the early slopes of the Col du Telegraphe. And you can see already riders starting to slip back. This rider from Cofidis is Michael Bouffaz, the French rider on that team.
Down to 12 already as we drop those two, the two Euskadel riders near the back of the race. They're good climbers, so they will probably move up. It's Johnny Hoogeland in second place here, who's doing a lot of the pacemaking as we get back up into the front group here. Now, Contador has also stretched his legs. Now, what are they going to do about this? Alberto Contador has started to do what Andy Schleck did yesterday. that's caused a reaction from the field. I don't think anybody expected this. Contador is throwing the race back at them.
Well, that's the way to do it, and almost immediately he's covered there. You can see it looks like Andy Schleck's come right onto his wheel. He wants to do it day after day. Chris Anker Sorensen, he was sent out there. That was the plan.
He now looks over, he sees his team captain coming up. Andy Schleck must say, what is he doing? How good is he? Is his knee injured? Has he recovered? And he's going with him to find out. We say goodbye to Saint-Martin de l'Arc. And now it's got to be up to Cadel Evans to come across, and brother Frank.
Well, Phil, we're looking at almost 57 miles to go to the finish, 92 kilometres. This is like the racing from the 1960s and the 1970s when people were not afraid. And again, another rider comes up from Saxo Bank. They're really good. And Frank Schleck's coming across now.
This is Navarro who's come up here. They have thrown the tactics of Leopard Trek back at them from the camp of Saxo Bank, and they've taken them on. Now, really, Cadel Evans has got to react to this. He can't allow these boys to go.
Chris Anker Sorensen's popped. He's gone straight back. He was there to try and do this for Alberto Contador this afternoon, and I'm not surprised. Bjarne Riis was very cagey this morning when he talked about today's tactics, because you can see Cadel Evans now just starting to come across the gap.
Well, he's had to shake his legs out a little bit early today. Here he comes, the Australian man who has now become the favourite to win the Tour de France in the papers this morning because of the time trial tomorrow, but he can't afford to lose any more time to the Schleck brothers, because that won't happen if he does. He has joined the leaders, and well, they're not the leaders, but they are the most important men in the Tour de France now. Navarro is the pace setter here, but for how long before Alberto Contador will lift his speed again, if he can?
Well, Carlos Barredo jumped across the gap there from Rabobank. He's looking for a free ride this afternoon with some of the serious heads of state. Now, we're looking here, Phil, to see where is the yellow jersey. That's the most important thing to look for now, because Thomas Voclet's got a couple of teammates alongside him. He's allowing them to do the pacemaking, but this is going to hurt Thomas Voclet.
Well, Marcus Burkhardt has also just dropped off the lead group, and I'm wondering if he's been told that Cadel Evans has had to respond to an attack. He is the teammate of Cadel Evans, and he might be waiting to put some power into this breakaway with Cadel.
Well, you know, this is an unbelievable move to come after the first couple of kilometres of the climb. Thomas Voclet now having to respond on his own. Look at this. I've never seen Thomas Voclet ride quite like this before. He's going to leave the rest of that group behind. He's going to try and ride across the gap.
Thomas Voclet has just crossed the gap now, the leader of the Tour de France, because momentarily he's probably not the leader if the gap was 15 seconds. He's absolutely sprinted across the surface of the Col de Telegraph and he's got to go round this group and get on with it.
Well, he's come up to the front just to show Alberto Contador, I'm here. My name's Thomas Voclet. I'm the leader of this race. So you guys may well be going for a play in the mountains this afternoon, but you're going to have to go a long way and a lot harder than that to get rid of me.
Barredo, a Spanish rider who is a great climber on Rabobank, leading Alberto Contador, who in turn leads Andy Schleck, Frank Schleck, and just behind is now the Maillot Jaune and Cadel Evans. This is its own private world of the Tour de France, and the rest can get on with their own race.
Well, Phil, we are looking here at first, second, third and fourth in the overall standings, and I would think the French are going to absolutely potty in front of their television screens this afternoon to see Thomas Voclet riding like that. Great champion. He
accelerates another 10 points in everybody else's eyes. This man refuses to succumb and give away that Maillot Jaune. There's an acceleration, tough though, and that's been hurting for Andy Weichler, who's setting this pace. It's still Barredo at the moment.
Well, it looks like Contador's teammates have all gone amiss at this afternoon. MIA, missing in action. They came up there, they had the plan, the strategy to do that, but all of a sudden, because of the pressure of this group, they've all disappeared.
11 riders still up front, by the way. 3 riders have been dropped, Greipel, Berghardt and Bouffas. We should see those pretty soon. It's only a 240 spread across the field to the main peloton. But this is an incredible Tour de France. We still have all of the mountains to come today. Alberto Contador, cracked yesterday, is now dancing.
Well, you might have noticed there, Frank Schleck swung off, and I wondered if he was not able to take the tempo of Alberto Contador, and he's actually lost the gap there and made a gap for Cadel Evans. Cadel Evans doesn't have that acceleration change, but like guys of the form of Alberto Contador, he's like a big diesel engine, but once he gets up to speed, he claws his way back into the group.
He said the other day that he isn't a man to instantly rectify an attack. He prefers not to waste the huge energy, but to build up slowly and cross the gap. Well, there's the champion of Luxembourg, number 18, the man who's won before at Alpe d'Huez. Now we've got Contador taking with him his eternal shadow. 1-2 in the Tour de France last year. Andy sitting there wondering what on earth is happening. How is Alberto Contador so well today when he was so bad yesterday?
Well, it can be a lot of different explanations, Phil. He may well have not have eaten properly on a big mountain stage. That's an error that a lot of professionals can make. And he said himself he had no explanation as to why he ran out of gas with 2.5 kilometers to go. But there was a lot of riders ran out of gas at 2.5 kilometers to go yesterday.
Yes, there was. Now, if Cadel Evans has not recovered from that magnificent chase yesterday to hang on to close proximity of Andy Schleck, he might be struggling a little bit. Here he is in the red jersey here, sitting behind Frank. The backup organised again. They've come back together for the moment. Contador continuing to keep his own rhythm, as climbers like to do. Always checking, just in case there's a sign of a crack forming, and then he'll kick again.
Can I just give you a little bit of information, Phil? The Col de Telegraph combined with the Col de Galibier makes a total of almost 30 kilometers of climbing. That's 18 miles uphill, and that's what these guys are looking at. And that's discounting the 13.5 kilometers to the top of the Alpe d'Huez.
That is a long way in anybody's book there. And Voclet, the maillot jaune, is glued to their back wheel yet again. Contador sets the pace. This is all too early for Andy Schleck. What's happened to brother Frank will be the first question in his mind, as Cadel Evans has made the move, and he'll stay there and will offer nothing to this just for the moment. He doesn't know where this is going, and frankly, none of us do. This is a terrific move by Contador. Sitting there offering nothing, and neither will he for a while yet.
151, this is Reim Terame. He's their best young rider now. He took that mantle over yesterday after a very good ascent of the Col du Galibier. That's Stuart O'Grady on the inside, the Leopard Trek. These guys in this group now, they can sit here and allow everybody else to do the pacemaking, but we've already got about a minute advantage from the yellow jersey group over this group now being led by Ivan Basso and his team.
This must be confusing to the Leopard Trek. They were expecting to set the pace here for Andy Schleck. Now there's no need for them to select the place because Andy is up the road. Frank would like to be up the road, but the interesting point was he had his chance and he couldn't hold it. He's gone back into the field here. Sylvester Smith, the ever-faithful pacemaker for Ivan Basso in the mountains, sits at the front here and just taps out the rhythm. Basso looking as though the pace is hurting him, and those 5 front runners, Burkhardt is still with them. They are now only 33 seconds behind, getting onto the tail of the breakaways.
Fabian Cancellara, the pacer, a little bit too hot for him this afternoon. He will come out to play tomorrow, Phil, when we do the individual time trial around Grenoble.
This will be 5 kilometers to go to the top, as we're now on a 7% gradient here. This is the breakaway group who've gone through 5 kilometers, 3 miles to the top of the Col du Telegraph, and we don't go downhill hardly at all before we switch onto the slopes of the Galibier.
Yeah, there's
in fact only 70 seconds across the board here. This is low. Burkhardt, who fell back, is falling back now and going on again. Contador is another acceleration from the champion of Spain, and he's looking to see, has this one hurt anyone? And it looks as though it might have hurt Voclet.
And Cadel Evans has gone off the back because of that acceleration by the Spaniard. Now all of a sudden Cadel Evans, Phil, is up against the ropes.
Well, we'll take a look at that now. Cadel Evans is definitely feeling the pain of yesterday's chase when he was left alone.
He's got
something wrong with his bike, surely. He's rocking all over the road, Cadel Evans. He's got a bike problem.
Well, there's something wrong with his machine there. Just checking the back wheel. I'm not quite sure what's wrong with Cadel. He's back onto the machine. And at this point, Phil, the team cars won't have come up alongside him. That's the neutral service mechanic there, giving him a push, getting him back into the race.
Well, for the Australians, this is heart-stopping stuff now. Cadel Evans, who didn't understand what was wrong with his bike, didn't look as though there was anything wrong, and there's the kangaroo to cheer him on. Tomo Voclet here will want Cadel Evans to come back and give him another shot. But what an incredible acceleration by Alberto Contador, and Schleck has gone with him, of course.
Well, Phil, at the start of this Tour de France, we talked about a duel between...
he stopped again. It's a gear problem.
Well, Jay was tightening up the back wheel there. Marcus Burkhardt has come up to him, and he's going to do whatever he can to try... No, they're different. I don't think
he'd ride the bike of Burkhardt.
No,
Burkhardt now is waiting to try and pace him back up here now, as Cadel Evans has got his back wheel. That's the sort of blow he does not need in this most critical day on the Tour de France, and I would say the most critical stage of the Tour so far.
Well, I tell you what, Phil, that was very unfortunate for him, but I tell you what, I think his legs were hurting him first before he had the mechanical problem with his bike. But this is an incredible piece of work by Alberto Contador. Before the start of the Tour de France, we talked about a duel between two men, Alberto Contador and Andy Schleck. Well, it's actually finally coming to roost.
Well, Tommy Voclet is down there in front of the race official's car as we look back down the road, spread out here. There's a lot of riders coming back from the breakaway, don't forget now, as we get in amongst it with Contador and Schleck. Now he's off again, and he's losing valuable time here. Whatever is wrong with that bike is now dumped on the roadside. The team car has now found him, and he's back in the action.
Well, the only one positive thing I can take out of this at all is the fact that he's got Marcus Burkhardt with him, and Burkhardt should be able to survive with Cadel Evans over the top of this climb, and he can help him make a daredevil descent down the other side and see whether or not he can get himself back into this bike race this afternoon.
Well, looking at the way he's got back into the action accelerated, it's not his body that's wrong. It was a bike problem, and now he's got to get back, and he's got to form an alliance for a while at least with Thomas Weichler, who is still struggling behind Contador and Schleck.
Well, that's an amazing piece of acceleration. This guy now has really got to find some special courage today, Thomas Voclet. He was incredible in the way that he rode across the gap once he saw Alberto Contador and Andy Schleck going clear. But I think this may well be the bridge just a little bit too far for Thomas Voclet this afternoon. When I saw him interviewed after the finish yesterday, you could see in his eyes the fatigue that was there after the days that he spent pulling himself inside out to keep that yellow jersey on his shoulders.
Contador's come up here behind Iglinski, the hero of the early climbs yesterday when he won them all. He's still towing now Andy Schleck up to the leaders.
Well, let me tell you one thing. It's a funny old thing, the sport of professional cycling. Turn the clock back 12 months. Maxime Iglinski was on the same team as Alberto Contador last year.
Comes up on the back wheel of his old teammate then as he now lines up now. Fletcher's just taking a look to his right, and he's seen Contador in amongst the leaders. How is this happening? Voclet here is going to get all the cheers for sure, but he really went into his red zone to hold on, and that last attack by Contador he could not cope with at all.
Of the Col de Telegraph, then some respite for this leading group of riders as they drop down into the town of Valois. But just looking at this way this race is unfolding, Phil, Alberto Contador could be winning the Tour de France for Andy Schleck this afternoon, because the difference in time between Alberto Contador and Andy Schleck is 4.5 minutes, and I don't think he can pull that back in a 40-kilometre time trial.
He has got to get a couple of minutes off him on the climb to Alpe d'Huez, and who knows how long this man can resist at the moment. Voclet is looking too much over his shoulder, a sign that he may well be falling back. Andy Schleck's going to the top of the Col de Glibier now, first category climb, with I think there's 10 points available at the top. He could be moving into the lead in the King of the Mountains competition.
I'm not sure he's thinking about that, Phil. I think he's thinking about a yellow jersey at the end of the day, and if he can pick up the polka dot jersey along the route, thank you very much, that's a bonus prize.
A great effort by Thomas Voclet. His face is telling the story now. His Tour de France as a leader has ended right here, I think, as he'll fall slowly back. They've stopped giving us a time check on him now. He's with Jerome Pinot at the moment of Quick-Step, but just under 1 mile to the top, 1.6 kilometers. Contador has gone from the back to the front, blown out Cadel Evans with a mechanical, blown out Frank Schleck with leg problems, and he's now towing Andy Schleck to the summit. Well, we're just coming up over the summit of the Col du Telegraph at the moment here, as there's Izagirre, it looks like, who's gone through in first place. No attempt by Andy Schleck to take the maximum points, and automatically the lead in the King of the Mountains. It looks like Schleck's had a word there with Izagirre about that. So as Contador resumes at the front, and it looks as though Schleck wasn't too pleased with the actions there of the first place by Izagirre. Schleck got second. He gets 8 points for that, so he has moved into the lead in the King of the Mountains anyway. Now we've got 33 seconds back to Alberto Contador. Now Voclet is saying here, go with me and get ready for a very quick descent down here as Jerome Pinot zips up his racing jersey, and Voclet wants back in that group.
I think he's also saying thanks very much for pacing me up to the summit of this climb, because I went through an extremely bad patch there. It's in total 4.5 kilometers from the Telegraph to the middle of the town of Valois, and there's a couple of tricky little descents, so I would expect to see the descent being made by Thomas Voclet to try and get back to Alberto Contador and Andy Schleck.
Yeah, with Schleck winning and Contador second, they were rather unhappy that Izagirre made the effort to beat them when they'd made all of the effort on the climb, I think. That's probably what Schleck was saying. Now this is the chase, the settling back in now. There's a spread here. There's still a gap which hasn't come up on our screens at the moment to the main head of the race, but I think it's about 34 seconds to Voclet. Contador getting some food. This is the peloton. They've just come over the top of the climb at the moment. And at the back of that little bunch there, it's quite a big bunch actually, is Philippe Gilbert. Now just have a look at this. Contador has got himself back into the action. And just looking around, he now wants Andy Schleck to come round him and do some sharing of the pacemaker. But nobody wants to know. I mean, they're all frightened of Alberto Contador on the way up the hill. Contador says, oh, no helpers, I better get on with the job here. Well, he's advertised the fact he wants to push on today. He's got rid of two of his rivals in Frank Schleck and Cadel Evans, and if he can just continue like this, he will be sitting second tonight. Faces of the riders now as they start the climb of the Col du Galibier, this giant col of 16.7 kilometers. Johnny Hugelin, the first rider to drop away from the back as they hit the slopes now, Paul. Now, just what is Contador thinking of on this climb after what he's done on the Telegraph?
This climb is a lot more difficult now because once you get up to the summit, you're getting almost to 10% gradients. Those are the kind of gradients that Alberto Contador really appreciates. It's on those climbs that his acceleration can be much more useful. A lot of chatting going on in the group fill, I have to say, between the Spanish-speaking riders, and I think Alberto Contador will be looking for some allies.
Well, the riders here, as they know, it's a long way to the top. The gap to Voclet is 25 seconds. He hasn't really caught up at all. And a minute 33 to the group containing Cadel Evans. These are time gaps with so far to go that has got to concern Cadel, of course, as the breakaway itself now has been joined here by Fletcher, who's coming back from the front.
Well, I'll tell you what, Phil, if you want to talk about a bit of defiance, that is defiance written all over the face of Thomas Voclet there. You might just have noticed in front of him, he could see the yellow car, the neutral service vehicle. Well, it's that car right there. He's looking at 25 seconds, 27 seconds. Yep. He's still locked in. He's riding at the same pace as Alberto Contador, which is absolutely phenomenal.
Well,
style, Phil, he looks laboured, he looks as if he's having a real hard time, but he's actually looking at that yellow car behind the leading group of riders thinking, that's what I want to get to, and that's what he's battling for.
It is amazing. He's almost can reach that car in front. It's agonizing. Halfway across the gap would mean he would be back as the leader of the Tour, but at the moment he's out of the race lead by 16 seconds. They're trying to reorganize things. This is the back of Robert Hessing here, and it looks as though Hessing, a one-time favourite for the Tour, is once again in trouble in the mountains.
Well, he's had a very difficult first week. Like many riders in the Tour, he had bad crashes, and it's up to now Cadel Evans' team to come forward and do the pacemaking. I just spotted big George Hincapie coming up there. He's been in situations like this before. He knows exactly what he has to do, and he will set the tempo for as long as he can on this climb. But the gap, Phil, is a massive, currently 1 minute 38 seconds gap back to the main field.
Be happy when they see Christophe Riblin dispatched back to the pack, because he's on the team nearest to them. And I think it won't be long before that happens. Look at this now. Evans tried to team time trial away. Basso tried to organise his liquid gas Cannondale.
Just get an idea there as they come around that corner just how steep it is in the corners on some of these cols. While we look at a gradient of 8 to 9%, these guys are now getting to the smallest gears that they've got on their machines. A 39-tooth chainring on the inside and probably 25 or 26-tooth sprocket on the back.
Well, you saw the flag picking up that tailwind, which was a headwind yesterday, because they come up the other side of the Galibier today. Still over 3 miles to go to the summit. Gorka Izagirre has dropped off from the back wheel of the yellow jersey as he continues his lone furrow to the top. He looks across the valley there to see, is he catching them or not? And the answer is not, because it's now officially 44 seconds back.
Well, Voclet still concentrated. He's slipping back all of the time, Phil. The main field are at 1 minute and 47 seconds, and they are really not pulling anything at all back. The big chance, I would think, will be once we go over the summit of the Col du Galibier, because we've got 45 to 50 kilometres of downhill to Bourg d'Oisans.
It is. The catch has come very, very quickly. So quickly, you must ask yourself the question, has this been the mountain which has cracked Tommy Voclet?
Well, it certainly has, and the man who cracked him was not Andy Schleck. In fact, it was Alberto Contador, and he's almost at a standstill there on the left-hand side. He's going to wait and try and get himself back into this pack. But now we're going to see, Phil, a long chase by Cadel Evans, and will he, once he goes over the top of this climb, find any friends at all in the Tour de France today?
Well, Evans has got to keep on picking up. He'll take some heart by the fact that he's come up alongside the yellow jersey. He's just got to grit his teeth and grind on. He's got Frank Schleck on his back wheel. He'll have to take him with him if that's the way it's going to be, because he's got to get back on terms with Andy Schleck. He's still got time in hand over Alberto Contador.
Well, this I've never seen racing like this, I don't think, ever, Phil. We're now looking at possibly the next man to crack here, number 91, 6th overall at the start of the day, and Ivan Basso is in difficulty.
And that wasn't supposed to be the plan at all. Basso, I thought, was able to help Cadel Evans. Now he is in difficulty. In the last 3 kilometres, that was a big peloton, which has been more than halved in size now as they've got to the real steep part of the Galibier. And Basso trying to keep hands on here, and his faithful man in front of him is still Sylvester Schmidt.
Well, Vincent Gérôme slipping backwards for Europe car. Pierre Rolon is in that group, and Anthony Charteau as well. They will probably, once they get over the summit, if they survive in this group, start to organise, I think, with Cadel Evans, because for Thomas Voclet, it's also a race today for the possibility of a podium finish in Paris.
As regards the Galibier, and an attack by Cadel Evans has done this to the Maillot Jaune. They have dropped Thomas Voclet from the chase group. I think we can show you the attack. This is it. Came on the right of the road in the wake of Samuel Sanchez moving clear. There was a reaction from Anthony Charteau here in the dark glasses at the front, but what they didn't know was that the teammates of Weichler see in the distance Thomas Voclet dropping off the back. Now the teammates have had to reorganise and go back and help him here. They've dropped back to try and bring him up, but take a look now at Cadel Evans. They're only 51 seconds behind the leaders. This is the counter. 51 seconds behind the leaders now. Cadel Evans has put in his counter move again on the hardest part, and this man started it. He provided the attraction for Evans. Here comes Cadel Evans now. The gap is beginning to tumble.
Well, Cadel Evans has split the group, and they're scrambling, trying to come across that gap. Ryder Hagedal over on the right-hand side in the blue helmet is trying to pace Tommy Danielson back up to this group to keep Danielson up in the top 10. This is why, Phil, I question the move of Thomas Voclet riding so hard halfway across that gap. He put a lot of effort in to try and stay at 30 seconds to those 4 leaders. It's a hard thing to do, and it's a tall order. Now he's paying for it.
Well, that was Samuel Sanchez go round. Now Cadel Evans goes round, and Frank Schleck's hooked up to the back of that little threesome there. If they go over the top here inside a minute, and it's quite likely they will right now, 50 seconds is the time gap, then they've got 50 kilometres to chase back to those leaders on the way down to Bourg d'Oisans. Then we will have the final showdown on Alpe d'Huez itself.
It's a crazy day, this, in the Tour, to make a move like that on the first climb of the day by Alberto Contador. He's ripped the Tour de France to pieces this afternoon, and it's all because of the fact that he wanted to ride himself back into the Tour. He doesn't care whether he finishes 7th or 9th or 10th. What he's trying to do is get himself onto the podium in Paris.
Well, these steeper final slopes of the Galibier are really now hurting Alberto Contador. He has looked good until just now, and I think Andy Schleck may have spotted that, and he knows there is a reaction behind. He keeps trying to catch a glimpse of who is chasing, but he'll know it'll be Evans for sure. Contador does the same. The other two have not helped at all here, Rui Costa and Christophe Reblon. They're just waiting to see. Now they know once they're over the top, and they're not far from the summit now. One good thing is he will increase his lead in the King of the Mountains, and this, at the end of this day, will mean he'll probably win the King of the Mountains.
Well, that's the important.
Frank is getting up to bro Andy.
Well, they've toughened the race up once again, in difficulty, in distress this afternoon. Ivan Basso as we go to the top of the climb, and there we go. Andy Schleck goes over him first, Contador in second.
And that will probably give him a victory in the King of the Mountains competition, but we won't presume that just yet. But Schleck goes over the top, and Alberto Contador didn't look quite so good in the last kilometre of that climb as he's done all day. The brief trip through the tunnel here, which keeps it at the slightly lower level than where we were yesterday. We're only at 2,556 metres today.
Oh, that's quite cheap. We've been robbed of another 100 metres, but I don't think these riders will be too concerned about that. They'll be extremely happy. Irish flag flying on the right-hand side there, as we wait for the riders to come out of the dark into the sunshine and then start that very long descent. Cadel Evans is pulling himself, Phil, back into the Tour de France today.
Well, our French television keeping with the leaders here, but Evans is over the summit and no final time gap. It looks as though 44 seconds is what we think they've topped the summit in. This is a picture of Thomas Voclet, 2 teammates staying with him. And what on earth was wrong with that bottle?
I'm not quite sure about that. I think he's having a little bit of a hard time here this afternoon. As we can see, toe 2 is Ivan Basso. Further down the slopes there, Levi Leipheimer's pulled himself back up to the wheel of Thomas Voclet, and he's got 3 teammates with him now. They've all been pulled back, Phil, to quite possibly try and pace him up to the group. There's Christian van der Velde.
There's Christian van der Velde. Most important, that the 3rd counter in the team race for Garmin-Cervelo here. So they're still doing a great operation here with 2 riders in the next group. It's a spread of 1 minute 36, and look at Voclet, just use his whole body to get over. Now he is a good descender. As we start the descent now from the line just below the clouds, we're now diving to the valley. It is a ride of over 50 kilometers downhill, and then the only way is up the Alpe d'Huez. Alberto Contador sits at the back of these 4 leaders here. They've begun the way down the Col de Galibier. If the roads look familiar, they should. The riders came up them yesterday to summit out the finish of yesterday's stage. And he wasn't freewheeling quite like that yesterday, was he? And that is Andy Schleck on the way down, getting as much as he can out of that bike without making the effort.
Well, most of these riders will know this descent because they actually rode back down it last night after the race finished. Schleck taking a few risks going around these corners. Schleck didn't ride down after the finish yesterday, Phil, because he stayed at the top of the mount until about 7:30, having to wait to provide a medical sample for the doping control. Thomas Voclet, quite clever, came down with one of the motorbikes from the newspaper L'Equipe to get himself off the top of the mountain down to his team bus as quickly as possible.
Yeah, well, sometimes those little favours are very specially reserved for French riders, especially if you lead the Tour de France. There is now the chase back. This is Cadel Evans here in the centre of our picture. He's got to make the descent of his life now. He's got a bridge, according to our computer, 28 seconds to catch up with those 4 leaders. And I cannot see those 4 leaders holding off Cadel Evans now. Tom Danielson is in a group of riders, the best placed American rider, of some 7 riders, including Frank Schleck. And they are chasing down. We've got no time on them just now. The next group we have a time on is the yellow jersey at 1:42.
Well, I'll tell you what, Phil, the way this race has unfolded so far, if it all does come back together, it's going to be a massive sort out on the slopes of the Alpe d'Huez. And it's going to be the last man standing, I think, who wins the Tour de France here this afternoon.
It has been all for one and one for all. It has been a terrific Tour de France. All of the favourites advertising their strength and always coming back together. Look at this now, Contador, absolutely superb in descent. Holds the middle of the handlebars. Now he reaches for those brakes as he leans into the corner and swings right. A lot of criticism on how these riders descend, especially coming to us from motorcyclists and racing car drivers. They never seem to line up correctly for the corners.
Well, the way to do it is to move over to the far side and then cut right across the apex of the corner. But the problem is, on a lot of these descents, Phil, some of the corners come too quickly for you to actually line up properly to get into the next corner that comes up.
Well, apparently, if you can't see the other side when you go in, and it's tight. As the riders now, 5 of them go down together. They must know the chase is on. It's 29 seconds to these 4 riders here as they continue the descent. In fact, they've been joined, I think, by the chase group of Frank Schleck. And Cunego is there now, Pierre Rolon and Tommy Danielson. They've got into the Evans group.
Well, it looks like Ryder Hezerdal is the man making the descent there. Cadel Evans going around that corner, sweeping right over to the outside of the line. He's trying to get himself onto the wheel of the Canadian, who is really ripping up this road.
8 riders in that group. Maybe Tommy D hasn't crossed the gap yet. It is Sanchez is there, Hezerdal is there, Evans is there. Some riders from the chase group have got a gap. We should see them coming round to the right of our picture. No, we haven't. So that gap is opening up a little bit.
Well, Contador getting himself down into an aerodynamic tuck there to keep the pace as high as possible. What an incredible backdrop of the Alps here this afternoon. The Tour de France wanted to celebrate 100 years in the Alps, of the inclusion of the Alps in the Tour. And what 2 days of racing we've really had.
In those 100 years, first of all, we had the advent of television, and now we've got the advent of high-definition pictures, and the country has never looked better here as the cyclists in the modern-day Tour de France course through the mountains here at speeds up to 70 miles an hour.
Yeah, around the corner there. He's not going to lay down arms at all, Alberto Contador, here this afternoon, because he knows he's got to put the hammer down today. That was an incredible move to write his name down into the history books, but it doesn't actually right now appear to be working, because I've got an unofficial time gap of around about 18 seconds back to Cadel Evans's group.
Yes, but they say that Heyerdahl and Evans is with Sanchez, and that didn't look like the case here, because this is Sanchez right now. So this is Sanchez here. The computer says Heyerdahl and Evans are riding with him. Maybe he's behind the camera, because here comes Evans right now, and Heyerdahl should be with Cadel. Then we've got Tommy Danielson just behind. This is a desperate chase off the Col de Galibier, the last high mountain of the Tour, but not the last hardest, because Alpe d'Huez is still to come. If these boys regroup in what is the next hour of descending, it'll be a great showdown at the OK of the Alpe d'Huez. See you in a minute. All the way, he still treasures hopes of rejoining the side of those leaders. This is the man who should get to them first. Samuel Sanchez looking right ahead there. Those cars are just behind that leading group of 4. Officially that gap is 12 seconds. Then you only need to look back 21 seconds and you will see that group containing Frank Schleck, Danielson, Heyerdahl and Evans. It is amazing now, the situation that everybody chasing, except Contador and Schleck, who are out in that front group.
Well, we're talking 11 seconds, the gap to Sammy Sanchez. A couple more corners, Phil, and he should be there. There's the yellow neutral service vehicle. He's on the back of the motorbikes. Those motorbikes are the information motorbikes, so they give the race information out on the radio to the referees, and then it gets sent out to all of the team cars. They're just around the corner. We're looking to see whether the junction is going to be made, and it should be made very shortly. Sammy Sanchez is a great descender, and all of a sudden he might prove to be a very good ally for Alberto Contador in this leading group of 5. Cadel Evans is still looking at around about 22 seconds.
Well, this is an excellent move by the Olympic champion Samuel Sanchez. You saw the speed he went round that motorbike. He just came out of the hole in the wall. He's now free to fly. They pulled all the cars away from the leaders. They will make the rider have to work to cross the void himself. No attractions of following vehicles, but it won't be a problem now. He's going to freewheel up. Now Sanchez is going to get across. What about the 9 riders who have grouped behind at 38 seconds?
They're actually losing time. They got to 22. It's stretched out now to 38 seconds, but Cadel Evans is now finding some riders in that group who are prepared to help, and of course one of those is Sandy Cassar, who's having an incredible ride today. He's such an up and down rider, Cassar. He's trying to protect his own teammate Arnaud Jonazon, who's looking to move up in the best young rider competition.
Well, while they've got Rein Taramay, the current leader in the best young rider competition, those are riders who are under 25 on the 1st of January 1986. He's off the back. Have they got Keremai in this group?
Now, Pierre Rolon is in the group. He's actually the man who will look to inherit the overall lead, I would have to say.
As they continue to make the move down here, there's 2 riders in the chase. This is the Cadel Evans chase group, still being pegged at 38 seconds. Sanchez has not got on just yet. It may be better if he doesn't until this group gets a little bit closer to the action. This is the chase group here of Cadel Evans. There's a 9 riders down there. Let's go back into the Leopard Trek, and we can check in on the car cam in there, see what. Don't forget, as we watch all the action here, Cadel Evans now pointed at 31 seconds. They've got to continue chasing. Log on to NBCSports.com/podium every day during the Tour for your chance to win a trip for 2 to the 2012 Tour de France and a Cervelo S5 bike. Also win a clean bottle and Giro helmet, and today's code word is switchbacks. Now it's a group of 5, Contador, Schleck, Sanchez, Costa, Reblon at the front, being chased by a group of 9, which includes Cadel Evans and the Garmin Cervelo riders, Tommy Danielson and rider Heyerdahl, and also a man who's trying to get up there for the new white jersey, and that's Pierre Rolon, who is the next logical candidate behind Rein Taramay, who has been dropped on the way up today. It's going to be the 26, Ivan Basso is trying to whip up the chase there and join up. It is an incredible spread, but it's no longer closing. They seem to all be pegged.
It's all a question of survival now, and we're looking at 31 kilometers to go. That's 18 miles of racing, and the last 13.5 kilometers or 8-mile racing is right up the slopes of the Alpe d'Huez. Another one of these incredible waterfalls in this part of the world. Some of them are extremely high, and this one is about 400 meters down.
We passed it last night driving here. It's crashing way down. All the rocks have been smoothed out over hundreds of years of that cascade coming out of the waterfall from the top of the mountain. So as we look down the valley now, we pass that waterfall on the right shoulder of the riders. We continue now. We're 31 kilometers from the finish. We start climbing the Alp. 14 kilometers to go. They've got to close it all down before then. See you in a moment. Still those 5 leaders, but the chase, which contains Tommy Danielson and Ryder Hejjedal, is now only 18 seconds behind them. These are the 5 leaders going through the little chicane here as we cross over the Chambon Lake and then flick to the right as they continue to descend. This is the chase behind. Sandy Cassar leads it at the moment. Evans in second place. Ryder Hejjedal. Tommy Danielson is here as well. It is incredible, but they know they're desperate now. It's just dropped to 13 seconds as I speak. They're closing in rapidly. They're going for the left turn. Well, there they are, Paul, making the same left turn around the back of the Chambon Lake here. And 13 seconds is the official time gap. And also 1:32, Voigtler's group is coming back as well.
It could be a very strange situation, Phil, where you see the whole of the race come back together just in the final kilometers before the start of the Alpe d'Huez. 13 seconds. It's a hard chase being put in by the group with Cadel Evans, Sandy Cassar and the rest. And the man, I have to keep telling you this, the man who's having the easiest ride of the day is Frank Schleck, sitting there nice and comfortable as you please.
And Frank would be the logical candidate to launch an attack, and Cadel would have to follow it. Frank remains a big danger here. As we continue in, he's only 4 seconds better on the overall than Cadel Evans, so he's really got to follow each other wherever they go. But first of all, let's do the one problem at a time. Evans has got to catch up with the leaders. And these are the leaders, and they look as though they're a little bit disorganized now because Sanchez has eased off the back here with Rui Costa.
Well, he's just
10 seconds, they're saying now. They must be in sight.
They must be. Well, they are in sight. They're in the same straight. There are the leaders, and they're just around the corner now. In the next kilometre or so, it will all come back together, and we will end up now with a 14-man leading group.
And it's taken an awful long time and 1.5 mountains for Cadel Evans to repair the time he incurred by changing his bicycle on the Col du Telegraph. There he is now. He's braking hard, looking a bit relaxed at the moment. A full hairpin bend here.
Well, that's what they're looking at, and there's around the corner. You can see that that chasing group of 9 riders. They are waiting to make the contact, and what a long chase that has been. And this has been an extremely difficult day, and it really is now, I think, Phil, setting up to be a survival of the fittest on the slopes of the Alpe d'Huez, because everyone has had an extremely hard day of racing. It
is setting up to be one of the most fantastic climbs. I think we've climbed Alpe d'Huez 26 times in history. I've seen 25 finishes. I was a bit too young, even I was, for the time when Fausto Coppi won on top in 1952. But now we are going to see one of the very best, and they will perform in front of their crowd on Alpe d'Huez today. Massive crowd. It's 4 seconds. They're clawing their way back into the race. Soon we will have 14 leaders, and the only man missing will be the maillot jaune of Thomas Voclet. 25 kilometers to go. That's for the leaders. Take a look over your shoulder because the other 9 are right there.
Almost. There's Cadel Evans coming around that corner. Under 25 kilometers to go now. It's about 3 seconds the difference. Andy Schleck will sit up. It's 10 kilometers, by the way, to the sprint point of the day. And there you can see Ryder Hejjedal is the man just pulling it all back together. Now, has Andy Schleck recovered from the efforts of yesterday? And how good is Frank Schleck going to be when we come up to the start of the Alpe d'Huez?
Rolon wants something from his team car. You probably saw Andy Schleck crane his neck. He's looking for brother Frank. Frank is there just behind him now. They've decided to call for drinks because at the moment they've called a truce now. They've made them work to catch up. They've caught up, so now they want to change their drinking bottles. And it looks like Rui Costa is pushing on.
Well, once this regrouping has happened, we're going to see a little bit of a slowing down. The average speed as those riders take on board drinks could quite possibly allow Thomas Vocler to come back to the main field.
Well, one thing is for sure, whoever wins the Tour de France on Sunday will know he's been in a bike race and has had to work for it. We are now 24 kilometres from the finish. We are 10 kilometres from the start of this incredible climb, which they call Alpe d'Huez, and it's 21 corners. We'll take a break on 400 metres from the sprint for the green jersey. It doesn't matter to these riders at all, because we're now heading towards Alpe d'Huez. In just a kilometre, they will make the turn and head up the mountain, and then the battle be on. Ryder Hesjedal, Pierre Rolon are the riders who are now heading the charge. And don't forget, today's commercial free is brought to you by Nissan and the 100% electric Nissan Leaf. Here we go, under the banner, the race starts now. The battle for the stage win and the battle behind as to who wins the Tour de France on Sunday. Hesjedal gets the most points there. So no sprint, not to be expected, or to be expected rather, Paul. Ryder Hesjedal and the peloton behind. This is the chase group, but as they come through, it looks as though the yellow jersey is rejoined at 15 to go.
Well, it's going to be, as I said earlier, Phil, I think last man standing wins the Tour de France here this afternoon. Cadel Evans knows what he has to do on the final climb of the day. He's got to keep a very close eye on Frank and Andy Schleck, and he knows that. He knows how much time he can pull back on them in the individual time trial. But has Frank Schleck got anything left in the legs to go for the big attack, to try and prize open an advantage over Evans?
Well, no sprinters involved in the sprint there, so we don't need to worry about the green jersey competition. Now this is the battle for who takes the yellow home after Sunday, as we come into this beautiful town in the Oison area of France, Bourg d'Oison, and then we will start the climb of Alpe d'Huez. 52 seconds is the gap now. Hesjedal and Roland have taken the chance, the opportunist moves, and that is a very, very good move.
Well, third, fourth and fifth, as you can see, these are the riders halfway across the gap, and they are Jonazon in there as well with them, with Jonazon.
Costa. Now this is it, look at the crowd here, there's the sign, 13.8, the finish line sits atop Alpe d'Huez. This is the climb that has seen so many of the big names in the sport of cycling seal their victories. Names like Greg LeMond, Bernardino, Lance Armstrong, you name them. When they've got to the top of this mountain, they've seen Paris in yellow. And now we've got a Canadian, the only Canadian in the race. And amazingly, Paul, there are hundreds of Canadian people on the top today. We met most of them last night. And that Ryder Hesjedal now is in a perfect position with Pierre Rolon to go for the stage win. Not the Tour win, but the stage win. And that is a big deal.
And that's what he's looking for. He finished third on the road into gap behind his own teammate. Integral part of that victory for Garmin Cervelo on that occasion. The scariest part of Alpe d'Huez, Phil, is when you come around this corner, then all of a sudden you look up, it's a straight wall in front of you. It kicks up to around about 12%, and it is very scary, especially if you're a non-climber.
Anthony Charteau on the right with the maillot jaune. It's a rather tight fit on these lower slopes, and these early slopes are very, very hard. A massive, massive crowd as BMC. This is like the old days when Lance Armstrong was launched by his team onto the top of the climb. But BMC have been quickly pushed out of the way now.
Well, this is Fuglsang coming to the front. He's had a pretty easy ride as well. He's been in a number of groups out on the course as we're trying to see BMC place Cadel Evans, and Cadel Evans has got himself the gap, because where is everybody else?
Well, they're all stretched out on the climbs here. They're trying to scramble through the gaps. There's Andy Schleck there. Voclet has gone after Andy Schleck. I'm sure this man cannot have any more strength left in those legs. The flag of South Africa flies over the race. There are no South Africans, sadly, in the Tour this year. Even the devil is learning to sprint as we start the climb of Alpe d'Huez.
Carlos Barredo covers there. You've got the Schleck brothers now coming across number 11. Andy Schleck, did he put too much in yesterday and today in that incredible move of his? Cadel Evans taking responsibility here as he looks over his shoulder. He's ridden alone on a number of occasions. He's come right up to Fuglsang. He was beaten on this slope a few years ago by Carlos Sastre, who put a massive big attack in, and Cadel Evans now has got that big diesel engine in full swing.
Now every corner is named. Every corner tells you where you are and how high you've climbed. Every hairpin bend, there are 21. These riders will have lost count after the first two. The concentration now. Cadel Evans knows he's got to ride. He's got to keep his eye on two riders, Andy and Frank Schleck, as he rides now for Australia's first victory. It looks as though the yellow jersey, although he came back with an incredible chase, is now slipping through the pack.
Well, we've got an organisation of Leopard Trek on the front. Fuglsang is trying to do the work for Andy Schleck and Frank Schleck. They want to pace him back slowly up to the back wheel of Cadel Evans. But as I said earlier today, Phil, I think the best form of defence for Cadel Evans is attack.
And Christophe Ribland, the rider who tried to go for it, has slipped off the back now. Evans is pushing on here. The Schlecks are being put on the defensive. Fulsang is trying to keep them in touch. Is this the move where Cadel Evans gets his revenge after 2 days of facing the attacks from Andy Schleck?
Well, it's what Cadel Evans needs to do now, and that's a great show of defiance by him after all of the hard work he did pretty much on his own yesterday over the final 11.5 kilometres. He took the responsibility. Rein Terme, best young rider at the start of the day. I think that's going to disappear and go onto the shoulders of Pierre Rolon by tonight. Who
is still in the lead, let us not forget, riding with the Canadian rider Hejerdal. But this now is Cadel Evans, and coming up alongside him, Fulsang is bringing up the two boys, Andy Schleck and Frank Schleck, and sat behind, a little bit quieter now, is Contador himself.
Well, the damage is being done all over this race, and all of a sudden we're looking at the control of Team Leopard Trek. They've pulled themselves back to Cadel Evans, but where's Alberto Contador? He's still got a couple of teammates in this group. I would think he's hidden in the middle there in the yellow glasses.
Sitting and waiting, and now Fulsang, how long can he set the pace here? What is Andy Schleck thinking after that long attack when it looked as though they were riding away from Cadel? They outpaced him over the Galibier. Now watch to the left of your picture, because here we go. Will there be an immediate reaction after Alberto Contador? Because he's lost nearly 5 minutes in the Tour de France, and it is only 12 kilometres to go. Fulsang has lifted the tempo.
Fulsang has got Andy Schleck on his wheel, and he's riding slowly across the gap. The reaction is coming, though, from Cadel Evans, who's seen this as a danger point. He's only going to follow one man. He's not really concerned about Alberto Contador. He's got a pretty good buffer over him in the standings, but he does have to make sure he keeps in contact with Andy Schleck. There he is. The Australian is locked onto the wheel of Schleck.
The determination of Contador, who wants some consolation from the Tour, and victory at the top of the Alp would be major consolation for the three-time winner. And you know, I'm not so sure Andy Schleck has got it right now. Cadel Evans is locked into him.
Well, Cadel Evans is locked right onto the wheel there of Schleck. That's all he's going to look for as we look at the damage this race is doing now. It has all come down to the Alpe d'Huez once again.
What a race on Alpe d'Huez here. The defending champion refuses to go out of the television screen and die gracefully. He's fighting his way back. He's too far behind, we think, to win the Tour de France. If he wins by minutes at the top, he might take his time back in the time trial. And that's a pure climber, Paul, the way he accelerates.
Reminds me a little bit of the move that was made by a certain rider from Spain called Carlos Sastre. He laid down the foundations on the Alpe d'Huez of his overall victory, and he needs to take back serious time here, Phil. I reckon he needs to take back a couple of minutes. That is possible by a man like that.
Well, when you open a gap like that with one kick of the pedals, and remember, Contador came out with a plan today which was from the gun to attack the riders. They weren't expecting it. Andy Schleck read it well. Cadel Evans was in mechanical trouble. They've all come back together for the Battle of Alpe d'Huez. What a day this is going to be. And now he's gone out of sight around the hairpin bends as we look at Andy Schleck with sitting in his slipstream Cadel Evans. Overall, Cadel Evans is 57 seconds behind Andy Schleck. That's enough for him if he gets it to the time trial. The battle at the front is for the white jersey and a Canadian stage win.
Well, the rider Hejerdal and Pierre Rolon look across and say, wow, this is Alberto Contador. He's come straight across the gap to us. Contador is looking for huge time this afternoon. He's also looking for some glory as well. Andy Schleck is concentrated. He knows what he has to do. He has to try and get time between himself and Cadel Evans. But after being up the front of this race for such a long time today and yesterday, I'm not sure he's got the giclette or the attack to get rid of Evans on this climb.
Another hairpin bend coming up. It's a shame we can't see the names because the plaques are all there, and there will be a Frank Schleck bend, of course, as Contador has caught the men who started the moves now, and Pierre Rolon grits his teeth. This guy's a real man for the future. He's only a youngster. As he grits his teeth now, he knows there's a white jersey waiting for him at the top, and that's the way it would go all the way to Paris. This is decision day in the Tour de France. Andy Schleck's probably the king of the mountains. The white jersey could be Pierre Rolon. Garmin Cervelo could be the team captains. Meanwhile, this is the scene on the climb. Who's going to win the yellow?
Well, that's the big question at the end of this afternoon, Phil. Cadel Evans just locked onto that wheel now. He's in a very comfortable situation. All he has to do is really watch Andy Schleck, but he needs to keep a very close eye on the time that Alberto Contador might be able to pull back in this race, because Alberto Contador started the day 4:44 behind Thomas Voclet, but more importantly, he was about 3 minutes behind Cadel Evans.
4:44 behind Voclet, who is no longer now, so it's 4:29 he is behind Andy Schleck, and that's the important time gap. And then you add on a further minute, so he's 5 minutes or so, 3 minutes or something ahead of Cadel Evans, that's all. And look at him now. This is the man we've seen win the Tour de France 3 times, riding just like this. Pierre Rolon grits his teeth. He won't give up as he stares at the Norwegian flags. What an incredible tour they've had this year. But now this is about the pass winner versus the other boys who wants his crown.
Well, Phil, at the start of the day, there was a 3-minute 32 gap between Cadel Evans and Alberto Contador. Now, if he goes crazy on this climb and he pulls out a minute and a half or 2 minutes, he could put himself back into the Tour de France this afternoon in the time trial tomorrow.
And no one would have thought that was possible at all. The face of Andy Schleck as he now tries to get rid of Cadel Evans. Evans rides in his slipstream without any problem as he continues up the lower slopes of the climb. Evans does not look in any trouble here, and he may find, if the gap does open, he may have to attack Andy Schleck and steal back seconds off him and close down seconds on Contador.
Well, this is going to be a huge battle. It looks like finally it's a climb too far for Thomas Voclet, who eventually, after his own predictions, is losing his overall lead in the Tour this afternoon.
10.9 kilometers to go at the moment as we continue on the climb. And just to remind you that today's commercial free is brought to you by Nissan and the 100% electric Nissan Leaf. And Contador,
he's getting himself into that zone now, and he's really all of a sudden bounced back in the Tour de France this afternoon, Phil. 30 seconds is the gap that he's got over Schleck and Evans, and he's looking like for a very likely leader, very likely winner of the stage here this afternoon.
Which would be not inconsiderable consolation for the former champion of Spain and the 3 times winner of the Tour de France and the emphatic winner of this year's Giro d'Italia. They now pass under that same 10-kilometer banner. Life's getting a bit complex in the pack here in the race for second place, though, that's for sure. And Evans won't panic. He will be told by his team car the time gaps. He will know exactly where Contador is, as will Andy Schleck. So they're going to hold themselves, because this levels out in the middle as Contador is on the top corner there. And now what's happening? A little tester?
Well, Frank Schleck's having a go now, immediately covered by Cadel Evans, moving up into 3rd position. Andy Schleck, this was what we expected to come, but I think as soon as he sees Cadel Evans there, he'll sit up, and maybe we'll see another counter move coming from Andy.
This is one Schleck sandwich that's going to give them indigestion, because Cadel Evans is marking both of them right now, and he still does not look like a man under pressure. They are using what energy they have left after a week in the Alps to try and dump the Australian, and I'm not sure they can. This man who's lost too much time for the moment to win the Tour de France, but that is a temporary situation. Ask me in another 20 minutes, he might be out to win the Tour de France.
Well, he could be. He's not looking comfortable. He doesn't look like he's enjoying this. It's not the fluid action we've seen before. He's being chased at around about 20 seconds by Pierre Rolon. Rolon is not actually giving up too much space here, and he, in fact, I think, is riding an incredible race at 24 years of age. All of a sudden, we may be looking at the renaissance of French cycling.
We've got a couple of good ones coming through this year in the Tour de France, youngsters, and in the next 2 years, yes, the French might at last find a winner since Bernard Hinault back in 1985. And you're looking at, he's even on his own back there. There's an attack by Peter Belitzer from HTC. Another surprise man. May not be an immediate reply to this, although it looks might be Sanchez's reply.
Well, let's not forget he was 3rd overall in the Vuelta a España last year. He's ridden himself carefully through the mountains, and he's riding with a man looking like a man who knows exactly where his body can go. Sanchez has seen that he's got himself a little bit of a gap there, and he's looking to try and keep himself well up in the top 10 at the end of the day. Now, he could be a dangerous rider, Sanchez. He was one of the strongest riders on the previous Col du Galibier.
He was. He dropped out after a terrific ride through the Pyrenees. He got right up amongst the leaderboard. He's dropped out to 8th place yesterday at the end. He's 5 minutes 20 behind Weichler, and take off 15 seconds. He's 5:05 behind Andy Schleck, who's the leader on the road right now. But he seems to have recovered entirely today. He's had a very, very good day's racing. But it's still the story of the renaissance of the winner of the Tour de France 3 times, Alberto Contador. This is the picture I love to see, but the riders must never see it.
No, it's absolutely horrendous. Those are the 21 switchbacks that takes the race right the way up to Alpe d'Huez. That's not Alpe d'Huez there, that's just the small town of Oison. A little bit further up, you see the zigzags continue right up, and that's where the finishing line is, right in that hamlet on the top of the Alpe.
And that's still where we've got to go. We have just under 5 miles, 7.7 kilometers to go to the summit. 2:19 back to the yellow jersey, but now Sanchez is also going away. He's not going to be reacted on by the others because he's lost too much time now.
Well, it's
55 seconds now, and that's all it is. And they've gone back to 56 as I speak. So that's less than a minute now, and the road doesn't get really easier, but very shortly he's going to come round the corner. He'll see the chalets of the Alpe right in front of him, and they are still 3 miles away from the summit. Champion, and really they shouldn't be running in front of those cars. It's not a healthy thing to do.
No, he's going around Dutch corner there. You can see it's painted in orange. They're dressed in orange today, not for the Basque supporters, but this is a little bit of Holland, and the crowd are going crazy.
This is Dutch corner, and they had hoped to be cheering. Robert Hessing up to the lead here. He's had a terrible tour. Again, crashes for him. So they're reserving their cheers now for Alberto Contador, and that'll be quickly followed by Andy Schleck, Cadel Evans, Frank Schleck, Riblon. Ryder Hagedal is there, and Tommy Danielson has got himself back up here as well, the American, and also the little prince Damiano Cunego.
Well, he's done a great job, Tommy Danielson. A little tap on the shoulder there from Ryder Hagedal. Said, look, mate, I'm almost cooked here this afternoon. You stay in contact because we could be laying the foundations down for the team victory for Team Garmin Cervelo of the United States. But this man is doing a phenomenal job, Alberto Contador. I don't think I've ever seen him suffer quite as much as he's doing here. He's got the pride of a nation on his shoulders, the pride of Spain.
24 seconds, it's back to Sanchez and Pierre Rolon. 57 seconds back to the Schlecks and Cadel Evans. That's ironic, because 57 seconds is the difference between Andy Schleck and Cadel Evans in the overall classification. Contador carries #1, 3-time winner of the Tour de France. The crowd wave him through here, a little bit more passive than lower down the slopes. A Spanish Basque flag just being waved at him here as he continues to climb up towards the summit of Alpe d'Huez. Behind at 21 seconds, Sanchez Roland, 5 kilometers to the finish, 3 miles. You can actually see the chalets on the top, but we can't show them to you at the moment. Peter Velits, Thomas de Gens are at 40 seconds, and the Schlecks and Evans are at 56 seconds. They're holding him, but boy, what hard work. So as we look at the slopes up towards the summit here, today's commercial free is brought to you by Nissan and the 100% electric Nissan Leaf. The dizzy height of Alpe d'Huez. Well, they had 1 million people on these slopes when it was a time trial that Lance Armstrong won. I don't suppose we've got 1 million today, but we have one heck of a lot of people watching the Tour de France. 2 Danish people. They're the Vikings trying to catch up with Contador.
Well, I don't think that was very nice. I'm not sure what that was all about, as Alberto Contador is not too happy about all these people running alongside, and it can be extremely off-putting as Contador tries to concentrate on the job in hand that he needs to do. He's holding on to still approximately that 1-minute advantage he's got over the Andy Schleck group. I don't think he's going to trouble Andy Schleck too much in the overall standings, but Cadel Evans needs to pay attention to Alberto Contador, make sure he doesn't get too much more than that 1-minute mark.
The crowd are getting a little bit crazed at the moment here as they try to close down the gaps. The spread is 2 minutes and 53. It's 1:05 now. They've opened a little bit of gap on the Schleck group as they're under 5 kilometers to go now. All of the work being done by Andy Schleck, who's fighting for a yellow jersey tonight. He waits for him at the summit, remember. He'll be last to start in the time trial in yellow tomorrow. How can he win the day for France?
Well, Pierre Rolon is looking very cool there in that breakaway. A lot further down the slope, Phil. It's almost 3 minutes now for Thomas Voclet. He's lived the dream for 10 days, and he's had the weight of France on his shoulders. I think they were all beginning to think that he was going to win the Tour de France. They thought that if he could survive to the top of the Col du Galibier, he could take it all the way up to Paris. But this final day in the Alps has put the final nail into 1 or 2 bike riders' coffins.
At the moment, the yellow jersey has lost nothing in the last few kilometers, which indicates that the others are slowing down because he's riding at the same speed. Sanchez is now going to have to content himself with dragging up the green jersey of Pierre Rolon. Remember, he's on the same team as the yellow jersey. An attack now by Damiano Cunego because he's opening up the in-battle. He's not going to trouble anybody overall. He's 5th, but he's 3 3/4 minutes down, and we're inside 3 kilometers from the finish.
Well, this is a question of pride here for Damiano Cunego this afternoon, Phil. He's thinking at 2 to 3 kilometers to go. He may well be able to ride across that gap, but he's looking at a gap of pretty much a minute and 10 seconds. That's almost impossible on the final few kilometers of Alpe d'Huez.
Well, just how much, though, have they put on the road here? It may not be impossible. 11 seconds is still the gap of Sanchez and Rolon. I think Sanchez doesn't want to take Rolon up to Contador, but he's coming inexorably there as he comes up now behind, and the chase behind is going to come after the with someone. The computer says Velits and De Gent are there. We haven't seen a single shot of them.
Yeah, they're there, Phil. They took off very early on. Velits actually went with Sammy Sanchez, but Sanchez just got rid of him as if he was a fleck of dust on his face. He's with De Gent, and they are in 4th and 5th place on the road. And finally, Ryder Hagedal is just cracking a little bit under the pressure, and it's still the Schleck brothers being matched there all the way, pedal stroke for pedal stroke by Cadel Evans in the red.
Hagedal will soon hear a lot of Canadian voices shouting him to hang on just before the summit now. And look at this now. Sanchez has brought up to Contador Pierre Rolon. You can see his face to see how hard the climb is, and Rolon has gone through on the inside, and I'm just wondering if he's made a move there because the camera's missed it, but I think Pierre Rolon attacked immediately. There he is.
Well, I tell you what, that's very surprising. Sammy Sanchez made the move right the way up, and he caught Alberto Contador, and at that point, I think when he went round that corner, it was so steep, he was caught out of breath.
Well, that was a great piece of thinking for the youngster in France in green here, Pierre Rolon. Contador just about hooked up, but already at his limit is Samuel Sanchez. If Rolon slows down, Sanchez might come back here. But this is a different battle. This is the battle for the win. If they start this in fighting, then the boys from behind are going to close in. Currently, they're 63 seconds, just gone up to 66 seconds behind.
Well, how happy are the French going to be with this Tour de France now, Phil? Because they've had the yellow jersey for 10 days on the shoulders of Thomas Voclet, and now they could very well be looking at the possibility of a stage victory on one of the most iconic races, most iconic mountains that the Tour has to offer.
And on the same team as the yellow jersey, Thomas Voclet. Then Cadel Evans has gone. This is the answer now for Australia. Now, can Schleck contain himself? He's gone with him. He never misses a move, does he, Andy Schleck?
He does not miss a move. There's attacks all over the slopes of this mountain now as we're racing to try and win the yellow jersey. Other riders are racing to try and win the individual stage, and Cadel Evans has almost got himself across to Damiano Cunego in the blink of an eye.
Cunego won't know what's coming on, and Pierre Rolon has dropped Contador. He's gone back to Schleck. France is racing to its first stage win on the iconic stage of Alpe d'Huez, and on a day when Europcar lose the individual lead, they get the new man in the white jersey and could be a stage win as well. It's an incredible battle, Paul, but Schleck has hung on. Now, very important, even if Schleck finishes with Cadel Evans, Evans will move to 2nd overall because Frank Schleck is only 4 seconds ahead of Cadel Evans. He's lost that now.
Yeah, well, Frank Schleck has lost that because he's really suffering to try and stay in contact with this race, and what a time trial it's going to line up to be if we've got Andy Schleck starting in last place and Cadel Evans starting in penultimate place at the end of the day. So the French finally, Phil, look like they're going to get their stage victory this afternoon through the tunnel, a little bit further down the road, and it's still around about a minute to the chasers of Andy Schleck and Cadel Evans.
But what an incredible day in the Tour de France. So many riders believed in themselves that they can win the Tour, and they are putting everything out to try and do just that. Cunego has managed to resist the attack. Frank Schleck is fighting his way back into the picture, and a Frenchman is trying to win the stage on the day. Pierre Rolon in his first Tour de France.
Well, it's amazing to think that Sammy Sanchez did the bulk of the work coming across there. He caught up his mate Alberto Contador. They're shouting at each other to work together now to try and get back to the Frenchman just a little bit further up the road. Alberto Contador has given everything this afternoon. There's the Frenchman just around the corner looking back to see what the gap is. Well, I can tell him it's 11 seconds.
It's a winning gap. I think I better correct myself. It's his 3rd Tour de France, but we didn't know him. He was on a different team last time, and he never ever distinguished himself, but he has now, as he's gone to the new Europcar team, inspired as the band who's looked after the yellow jersey of Thomas Voclet over every mountain and kept him in yellow for as long as he could. Now he's going to try and get the best young rider's jersey and the stage win. Sanchez will be kicking himself because he took him up, and Evans goes again, and this time he never misses. He's after him again. Andy Schleck has gone. They've gone around Peter Velits and Thomas De Gent.
Well, now Evans is looking for second and third place on the road, or fourth place on the road, because just ahead of him now, not too far ahead, are these two riders who are losing incredible chunks of time as they go on the Flamme Rouge, the red kite. 1,000 metres to go for the Frenchman.
And you know, by the start of the Tour de France, do this one, looks over his shoulder, he can still drive. The time doesn't worry too much now. This is going to be a huge cheer, and the Frenchman gets the win at Alpe d'Huez. As the crowd cheer, a two-arm salute, look, it's me, and he gets a white jersey as well. And it's the Olympic champion, Samuel Sanchez, who comes home. And for many, the hero of the day, Alberto Contador, who will cross the line in third place.
Well, Alberto Contador tried to do everything to turn this race upside down this afternoon, and what a phenomenal performance by him. 34 kilometers an hour. Not really a good time to remind you that the elimination time this afternoon will be about 25 minutes. And I would think there's a lot of riders and a long way back. Andy Schleck now is coming up to the line, and he's caught up everybody.
Taking on Voclet as they come in. Schleck determined. Evans must keep that gap closed down. There'll be time gaps if they don't. As they race towards the line now, Voclet is going to take on Andy Schleck. Look at this. And there'll be no split time here because Evans is making a dash for the line. Evans wants to prove a point, and he usually finishes off with victory. But today, he'll have to pay second fiddle to Peter Voclet, who is going to survive best. But in second place, it's Cadel Evans. I reckon tonight, in hindsight, he may have won the Tour de France tomorrow. So he sits 57 seconds behind Andy Schleck when they start tomorrow in the time trial. And this will seal up the team Garmin-Cervelo as they finish Ryder Hesjedal and Tommy D'Angelo. But tomorrow, Paul, it will be Andy Schleck in the maillot jaune.
It will be Andy Schleck. What a fight by the Schleck brothers here this afternoon, Phil, and it's going to go down to that individual time trial. Christophe Riblon coming in. The Schleck brothers have made this race through the Alps quite remarkable. And by the way, let's not forget, at 1 kilometre to go, the yellow jersey at the start of the day, Thomas Voclet, is still fighting, and he will fight all the way up to Paris, this young man.
And still gets all the cheers. This is Ryan Taramay coming in, but it's not enough time saved to keep that white jersey. It'll be presented tonight to Pierre Rolon. He started the day with only 33 seconds advantage over Rolon. Rolon has won the day, 2 minutes has gone by. So he's lost the white jersey to Pierre Rolon. In this group two, the back in the red is the American Santa Rosa, California, Levi Leipheimer, just behind Ivan Basso.
Well, Ivan Basso tried with his team to keep this race in check, but what a battle everybody's had this afternoon. It really has been an incredible race. Pierre Rolon, by the way, Phil, said he needed a big chunk of time when we came up to the individual time trial to try and keep Ryan Taramay back.
Well, that'll be an interesting battle. That one won't die until tomorrow either in the time trial for the white jersey, because Taramay is a very good time trial champion. We'll see as they continue to come in now. We've already seen Hesjedal has come in, and that's possibly has kept the lead for the riders in the team competition for Garmin-Cervelo. But Pierre Rolon has won his first stage of the Tour de France and the first stage this year for France.
And there's going to be a huge cheer also, because you can hear them and they can just about see the yellow jersey coming around the corner. That's Thomas Voclet. He's ridden exceptionally well, I have to say, today, Phil. I don't know where he's got all of his strength from, because he almost made it back into the group. Christian van der Velde over there makes it the third rider for Garmin-Cervelo as well.
He's getting a bigger cheer than the winner of the race today, and he's determined to show his colours at the front of this group. He had 15 seconds at the start of the day now, and he's lost 3 minutes of that, but it doesn't matter. He has gone out in a cloud of glory today, and well done to Weichler. He won't be in yellow tomorrow, but he'll certainly be a better-known person because of it. So, tremendous riding. Pierre Rolon of France gets the first French stage win. As we now come up to the top of Alpe d'Huez, we've watched this ski station develop over the years since '73 when we first came up seriously. And now there's a map of France for you, and this is the result. Team Europcar of France gives Pierre Rolon his first ever stage victory in his third Tour de France. Sam Sanchez, the Olympic champion, finishes second. Contador, the defending champion, gets third. Voclet, the top man on HTC High Road, is fourth. Cadel Evans, determined to win this tour, finishes in fifth, 57 seconds back, in the same time as Frank Schleck and Andy Schleck. Ryder Hesjedal just behind them in 10th place. The Canadian had a big welcome here on the top of the Alp, because there's a lot of people from Canada over here watching Hejerdal this day. Tom Danielson came in 11th place. Jean-Christophe Perrault, the mountain biker, in 12th in his first tour. Rain Taramay might get his white jersey back in the time trial tomorrow. Ivan Basso completes the top 15. We're far from done here on Alpe d'Huez, but we will take a break while the riders get their breath back, and the commentators, and we'll see you back here on the other side of the messages. Rejoin us as we wrap up an incredible day on the Tour de France.